What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about and walking through the steps of installing a YSF reflector on your own and hosting it on your own. So I'm going to walk you through the steps of installing a YSF reflector on a Debian Linux system all the way up to hosting it with a dashboard. So we're going to cover a lot of topics. I know some people aren't as technically inclined, and some people may even be intimidated by the terminal in Linux. So I just wanted to make this video to make sure I break everything down as simple as possible for those of you out there that might want to host your own YSF reflector. There's a lot of different reasons why you might want to host your own YSF reflector. Maybe you just want to experiment, maybe you just want to learn, or maybe you just want to have a place for a community like me where we can talk to each other over the radio. So this tutorial assumes that you have a basic Debian install working. This means either in the cloud somewhere or at home on a virtual machine or your own server. So this will not cover the installation of Debian, but it will start right when you get the install done. You can also use this tutorial to kind of help yourself along on the Raspberry Pi. The commands are different, and I'll be sure to link down in the below with a set of commands for the Raspberry Pi, but they don't vary much at all. If you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button below. Please like the video. Please hit the notification bell, and let me know down in the comments what kind of other tutorials you would like to see, or if you have any questions about this one. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so we already said that we are going to have a working install of Debian. So right now I'm just SSH'd into the Debian and I'm logged in as a basic user, right? So with a new install, the first thing we want to do is, because we don't want to do everything under root, we want to go ahead and add this user to our sudoers file so that they can perform the commands. Real quick, guys, I made a few mistakes in the commands, so I went back and actually edited all of the commands in the command list to make sure that they are correct. So sorry for the mistakes that I do make, but just bear with me here. And that's pretty easy. And I'll have all the links, all the commands I use down below if you can't see them on the screen. We're just going to edit the sudoers file. We don't have sudo, so this is an opportunity to learn. We will do, first we have to become root, so we'll do sudo su, or that's right, su, and we will type in our password to become super user. And now we're going to install sudo. Alright, so now sudo is installed. We're going to exit. Actually, since we're already root, we'll go ahead and edit the file we needed to edit. So we're just going to do nano, and then we'll do etc/sudoers. And we're going to scroll down, and right under allow members of group sudo to execute any command, we're going to paste a line in there. And it's going to start with our username. So we're just replace username with your username, and then Control X, and then Shift Y. Now, if we exit, we should be able to perform sudo commands under our user. So the next thing, just good practice, is to go ahead and just run an update. Enter your password when it prompts you. And we also need to go ahead and install Git. Because we will be needing that. Next, we need to install some tools that will allow us to pretty much compile or build the YSF Reflector software. So that's going to be build-essential, and of course you'll have to run that as sudo. And this install may take a little while. It's got a lot to download and install depending on your internet connection. So now that that's installed, we'll go ahead and pretty much download the software. So go ahead and paste the command in there for git clone and then the software URL. I'm not going to spell out all of these URLs. They're going to be down below. So don't try to copy it off the video. Just copy and paste the commands. Once we have it downloaded, we're going to cd or change directory into that folder. And I'm just going to ls just to make sure I'm in the right place. Ls just lists all the files and folders that you're currently in. And the next one is going to be your installer script. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that command and throw it over, and this will run the installer. It says that we need to run it as root, so we sudo run the install file. What will be the name of your reflector? So this is the actual name of your reflector, and it usually starts with US if you're in the US, or your 2-letter country code, space, and then your name. Once again, it can't go over 16. So this right here, I'm not actually going to make this live. I'm just going to call it test ref, US test ref. The next thing it's going to ask you is, what would you like to make the description? And this can be 14. So you can just type in anything you want. I would stick, I don't know the exact rules about symbols, so I would stick to just letters and spaces. So we're just going to call this the DES, right? Now, if you have a fully qualified domain, you can actually specify that here for the dashboard. What that means is you've just purchased a domain and you pointed it to an IP address so that if users want to go to your dashboard to see what's going on the server, they'll be able to type in a URL. So in this case, I'm just going to type in, if you don't have a URL, you can just type in your public IP address. And the link to get your public IP will be down below. But in this case, I'm going to just do ourref.com. So this is going to go through the installation. And now, once that's done, one thing I noticed about the installer script is it has issues with Apache. So we're going to cover installing Apache. So the next thing, you also need to know that the reflector is installed. So there's a couple commands that you can use to start and stop the reflector. So we use systemctl, and this will probably have to be run in sudo. And either start, stop, status, or restart YSF Reflector. So if I were going to see the status, we just do this. And it shows us that it's running. Control C usually gets you out of stuff like that on Linux if you don't know. And if we're going to stop it, just type in stop. But we want to start it back up again because we're not done with it. That's the easy part. Pretty much the YSF reflector is up. So the next part is optional, but I do recommend installing the dashboard. And after we install the dashboard, we'll go into actually registering the YSF reflector. To install the dashboard, we will need Apache. So it's as simple as this copy and paste in the commands here. So we're just going to install Apache 2, and we need to be sudo to do that. Yes. Now, the installer script may have completed some of these commands that I'm about to do, but I'm going to issue them anyways just in case. The first thing we're going to do is going to add a group. Group add command not found. Let's try it with sudo. Okay, so the group already exists. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and assume that most of these commands are going to have to be run as sudo. The next thing we're going to do is give that group permission to the Apache files. And of course, we have to do that as sudo. And now we are going to modify the permissions on those files for almost everyone. And we are going to install what we need for PHP. Once this is done, we have the web server up. And if you'd like to verify that, you can go to the IP address of the server, :80. Or just the IP address of the server. It should at least show you the Apache welcome page. And we'll take a look at that right now. So this is just the basic web page for Apache. Now we're going to go ahead and replace that with the files for the dashboard. So after we install PHP, we want to restart Apache. So we'll issue the Apache command or the systemctl command, just like we did with YSF Reflector. The next thing we're going to do is cd back into our home file, or home directory, and we're going to get the dashboard software. So going to git clone it just like we did the YSF Reflector. And at this point, we're just going to go ahead and copy that software into where we are hosting our Apache. Permission denied. You get that, you have to run it as sudo. So it says no such file or directory. What could that mean? Well, let's do an ls here. Well, I see that the YSF Reflector dashboard is in our current folder, so we don't need the root. So we're just going to go ahead and chop off this root here. And we have to run it as sudo. So sudo copy -r YSF Reflector dashboard / into var www html. Now the files are there. Now we're going to remove the default HTML so it doesn't show once we go to that IP address. We have to do that as sudo. Sorry, we have to do that as sudo. It was asking me a question. So sudo, now it's gone. Now let's refresh the page and see what it looks like. So now we have our YSF Reflector. Easy enough, right? So next, we need to configure that YSF Reflector to make sure that it's pointed at the right destination of our files. So after the IP address here, you're going to type in / and I believe it is config.php. That's wrong. So what we'll do, I'm going to go over here and actually cd into this and see what the name of the configuration file is. setup.php. So back over here, we're going to go to our IP address and type in setup.php. And now we're at the setup page for our dashboard. So the path to the YSF Reflector log file, that's going to be exactly as it is here. So I'm going to just leave it blank. We probably need to type in something. So it is /var/log/YSF Reflector. Yep, there it is. The log file prefix is going to be the same. So that is going to be YSF Reflector. Now, the path to the YSF Reflector INI is going to be what's different. And different ways to install this puts it in different places. But this is actually in our root. And we can see that if we go back to the terminal, if you type in cd ... every time I do that, I'm moving up a folder. So once we're into the root drive of our install, if I type in ls, it says YSF Reflector is a folder. So if I hit cd space and I go into that folder and then do ls again, I see my YSF Reflector.ini. So now I know where it's at. So here we'll just do /YSF Reflector / well, that's it. That's all we need because it's in that folder, right? The YSF Reflector file name, well, we can, oops, I wasn't showing my Firefox. Well, the YSF Reflector file name, the .ini is right here, right? So that's the name. So we're going to put that right here. Now, the binary to run the program, which we can see is also right here, is in the same folder as the ini file. So let's go back to the dashboard here, and it's going to be in the same folder. So we can just put that here. Your time zone is going to vary depending, obviously, on where you're at. For me, it would be New York. If you have a logo to use for your dashboard, you can specify the URL to the image here. Page refresh rate, I'm going to leave those as default 60. Show logs and days, 60. Also, I'm going to leave this as 60. And just keep all that as default. Now, I like to use the progress bars myself. And I also like to show the link to qrz.com on the call signs. Once you're done here, all you have to do is hit Save Configuration. And it says your dashboard is now available. So we'll jump back over to the dashboard. And from here, the important part is to remove the setup.php. That way other people can't use that file to modify your dashboard anymore. So once you're done with it, let's go back to the terminal. We are going to remove the setup.php file. Of course, we have to be sudo to do that. Now, once you've done that, if you refresh the page, the warning sign should go away. And there we have it. We have our dashboard. Now, this part may or may not be necessary, depending on your firewall setup, but I like to do it just in case, just to minimize any issues. Let's go back to the terminal. And the next part here, we're going to open ports for both the YSF Reflector and our dashboard. So we're going to just open up the TCP UDP on both. So, of course, the commands are going to be below. And we are just going to open that. So by default, the YSF Reflector operates on port 42000. If you would like to change that, it's not too difficult. All you need to do is find your YSFReflector.ini, which we know is on the YSF Reflector folder on the root, and you just sudo nano, and we open that file. And if you go down here, you'll see port. So if you'd like to change the port, you would change it here, Control X, Shift Y, and restart the YSF Reflector using the commands that we looked at earlier. So we're going to go ahead and open the UDP portion of this, and we are going to open port 80. Port 80 is for the dashboard. Now, the next step after you open the ports on the machine is you need to open the ports on the router or your hosting service. And those steps vary from router and router to whole different services. Like, there's so many different ways you can do that. But if you don't know, what you're looking for is something called port forwarding. So you want to forward those ports to the IP address that your server's hosted on. And you can see that if you type in IP space A. And the IPv4 address is shown right here. So if you would like to change, if you'd like to forward your ports, you need to make sure you forward them to this IP address. So once you do that, your services are up and running and they are online. For good measure, after forwarding those ports or opening those ports on the Debian firewall, it might be good practice to just go ahead and restart your YSF Reflector. So that's sudo systemctl restart YSF Reflector. Now the next step is to actually register that reflector online. And so we're going to go ahead and go over and do that now. So here at register.ysfreflector.de, you will see the website to register your YSF Reflector. Let's move this back over here. So obviously we want to go to register reflector. Now the name and the description has to match. Actually, the name doesn't match. Let me explain that to you. It has you input the name here, but then it adds the two-letter country code space beforehand. So you take the name that you put in your INI file, anything after US space or UK space, and that's the name that you put in here. The next thing you want to do is just do the same thing in your description. It's going to be exactly the same. Your host/IP address. Now this could be your fully qualified domain name, or it can be your public IP that I showed you earlier. The port, by default, it was 42000. If you change that, make sure you adjust that accordingly here. The country is obviously going to be your country. The admin call sign is going to be yours. Your email address is going to be yours. The dashboard URL is going to be your dashboard. So if you don't have a fully qualified domain name, then you will use your public IP address, and that's it. That should take people straight to your dashboard. If you have a fully qualified domain name, that would be here too. The bridge, I think I never use this feature, but if you're setting up a DMR to YSF bridge, I think that you would need to put information in there. The next step is to just hit submit YSF Reflector. Once you do that, in a few minutes you will receive a email address to activate your YSF Reflector. You're going to click that email. It's also going to provide you a temporary password. Once you activate your reflector, you're going to log in with your temporary password. So once you're logged in, you're going to be able to hit show my YSF reflectors. Once it's confirmed, you'll get the check mark. Obviously, you'll see your ID, your name, your description, and you'll be able to ping it from the interface with this refresh sign, and you'll be able to edit it. So from here, it should take under 2 hours for your node to reflect on the list. When I say the list, well, if you click the home page, there's a huge list here of reflectors. So if you type it in here, you should see it. If you don't, something's not configured correctly. Once it's here, it takes several hours to populate onto PiStar. Now here at pistar.uk/YSF_reflectors, there is a huge list of all the reflectors that are in the system. So after several hours, or maybe sometimes I've seen up to a day, you should see your reflector on this list. Now the next step after that is to actually see it on your PiStar. So let's take a look at that. What we'll want to do now is SSH into our PiStar. And I'm doing it from the system I'm on now. So I'm going to do SSH pi-star, and I'm going to type in the IP address. If you've never SSH'd into your Pi, the default username is pi-star, and your password is Raspberry. So once you're SSH'd into your Raspberry Pi, the first thing we want to do is enable read-write. So that's just going to be rpi-rw. Next, we want to become a super user. So I'm just going to type in sudo su. Now that we're a super user, we are going to edit a specific file. So we need to change directory to where that is located, which the commands are in the description. I'm going to type in ls, and you're going to see a specific file right here, this host file, YSF hosts. We're going to edit that. So I'm going to hit nano space that file. Now, we're going to have to find our node once it's populated in here. Fun fact, if it's not populated in here, you can actually copy one of these lines and replace it with your information. So it would be your node ID, your name, your description, the IP address, which would be local, the port, and your dashboard URL. But let's assume you're doing it kind of the right way and it's populated, and you just need to change it from the public to the private on your side so you can connect. So if you hit Control W, it opens up Find, and you type in the name of your reflector. So mine is Modern Ham. So if you go over and see the IP address, you'll probably see a public IP address. I've already changed mine with my private. So you type in your private IP address here to your YSF reflector. Once you're done, of course, Control X, Shift Y to save it, and restart your Raspberry Pi. And whenever you connect to your reflector, you should be good to go. And so that's pretty much it for the video. We set up a YSF reflector, set up the dashboard, and we registered it, and then I showed you how to connect to your own from your Raspberry Pi. So if you liked the video, please make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and please leave me a comment below what you think. Anyways, 73 to you.